Welcome, Ellis, to the Next Big Creator Summit. It's great to have you. For those who don't know who Ellis is a cartoonist. He uh, creates for New Yorker, the Paris Review, and other major publications out there. And first of all, I would love to know from the chat if we are audible. Can you see us, hear us well? Okay, a lot of yeses coming in. Thank you, Sakshi. Thank you, Sanchan. Thank you, Akshay. Awesome. I'll just do a quick intro for Ellis, and then we'll dive right into the questions. And if you have any questions throughout the session, please drop them in the questions tab. We also have a giveaway for people who ask the most interesting questions, get Amazon gift vouchers. So that's a big incentive right there. All right. So, as I mentioned, Ellis is a cartoonist for New Yorker, Washington Post, Paris Review, and other reputed publications. He has also worked on illustrating books, and he regularly creates funny, memorable cartoons and sketches. He dwells on how creators have new opportunities as the appetite for comics, digital art, etc. is growing. So let's dive right into it, Ellis. My first question to you is, how did you start? How did you get into this whole space of creating comics? Did you, like, as a kid, did you always enjoy reading comics and then you started drawing them? Please let us know about the journey.
Sure, yeah. I was definitely always a person drawing constantly. I was doodling as a little kid. I was doodling all through school, just constantly doodling. At one point, I thought comics was the way to go, like comic books, graphic novels. And I sort of tried pursuing that for a bit before sort of realizing that maybe wasn't exactly the right route for me. But whatever it was, I knew it involved drawing. And as that was the only thing I showed any interest in. So, yeah.
So, how has the journey been like? I guess it's been quite a few years you're into this space. How was it back when you started, and how is it now?
Yeah. Well, there's something, it was certainly frustrating in the beginning. I knew I wanted to draw, but I didn't know exactly what that meant. And that really was a big question. And like I said, I tried comics for a while, and I didn't take to it that well. And I went to school in Savannah for comics, and I had all these friends who were like drawing superhero comics or sort of indie things. And I really just couldn't quite get a grasp on that, get a handle on it. And that was frustrating. It felt like, why did I pick this if I don't even really love it? It wasn't until I started submitting to the New Yorker as one-panel cartoons where it suddenly all came together, and I realized this is exactly what works for me. It plays on my strengths, and it's a really fast and easy way for me to grow as an artist and use my humor. And I don't think anyone would ever call me the best artist in the world. Unfortunately, something as ephemeral as cartoons doesn't require that. So it was frustrating up until that point, until I really figured out what the path for me was.
Got it. Yeah. And Ellis, I wanted to learn more about the creative process of creating a comic. I know it's just one square block with a drawing and a caption, but I'm sure sometimes it must even take weeks to come up with that one piece of content. So how do you go about with that?
Well, I have several. So I would say the main important thing for a cartoonist to part of their process is to remember at all times that they are a cartoonist and that anything could be a cartoon. So I like to think of it as a switch in your head where you switch it on and you're thinking, is this a cartoon? Is this a cartoon? Is this a cartoon? And if that switch is on and you're going about your day and you're living your life, you're going to come up with ideas. You're going to start to look at the things that we all say and do and feel that we just take for granted and realize, wait a second, this is a relatable experience. This is a funny experience. This is a experience that is ripe for a comment or humor in some sort of degree. So what I do is then I write it down in my notes app, and either sometimes it pops into my head as a cartoon, or it's just a concept, it's just a phrases that we all say, but don't think about that often, are good fodder for cartoons. And then I have a sketchbook, and I try out, all sorts of silly ways to do it. And, they're not very good sketches. And oftentimes it takes me a few tries to really figure out what I'm getting at until it all comes together for whatever the idea is. So it's a lot of sitting and doing nothing. It's a lot of living life, and it's a lot of sort of just trying to figure stuff out. And then finally it's drawing, and that, is the most fun part, and the most relaxing part, and you can like put on a podcast or whatever. And so yeah, I mean, and it's also taking breaks. A lot of times you're like thinking so hard about something, and you can't figure it out, and then you go for a walk, take a shower or anything, and then suddenly it pops in your head. So there's this constant push and pull of that. So
got it. Looking at your sketchbook right there, I see a lot of filled pages. So I'm assuming you draw it on paper first, and then you draw it on the app or the iPad or whatever. So
yeah, so my sketches aren't like, some people have really fancy, nice sketchbooks. Mine are not. Mine are very, you can barely read them. You can, the drawings are just very quick and silly. Sometimes I draw a little character, and I wish I could have that degree of like looseness in one of my I don't know, like this guy's face is kind of funny. I just draw it there because it's just easy and fast, and I just get the idea out, and I can send it to. I should mention that one big part of this is sending out my ideas to all my peers and saying, "Is this funny?" Okay. And
so when you talk about peers, who is this group of peers? Is this your wife? Is this
wife,
friends?
Part of that. It's a lot of other cartoonists.
Okay.
If I start naming them all, I'd feel bad if I left anyone out. But there's I'm on different text threads with various cartoonists, and they send it back to me, and definitely my wife, sometimes my parents, sometimes friends who are not cartoonists and completely different jobs, because it's good to get like a big,
third person view.
Yeah, exactly. And you can sort of take a tally, like if most people like it and some people don't, well, maybe it's worth drawing up anyway. And then but if like no one likes it, okay, that one's not working.
Got it. So I want to talk more about the creator economy in general now. So if you see, the means of content creation, even for a digital artist, has increased. Like someone who's not good at drawing can still become a cartoonist in today's time with the help of so many good apps that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you think that has evolved? And what do you think is the future now of tech getting involved with the traditional form of drawing, let's say?
Yeah, there are so many cool apps and like programs that I see pop up that are like drawing aids or like things that can help you. I mean, I think they're cool. Everything's just a tool. You start with a ruler, and then you go to some, on one end, and then on the other end you have a super fancy whatever, I don't know, drawing that can pose a character for you. The program I use, Studio, they have this new function. I haven't tried it yet, but where you can upload a photograph and they will create a 3D model of whatever the pose that the photograph is. I'm not sure it works great, but it looks neat. And like, if they keep working on that, I mean, that's a fun thing, if anything. I don't know how helpful it might be for everybody, but it's just interesting and fun and cool. There's all sorts of programs like that. I used to use, before they made it cost money, it used to be free, but what's it called? I think it was a Google program. It was 3D models, and you can just upload a 3D model and rotate it any way you want, and then turn it into a JPEG. And then, so if there's something particularly difficult, I'd use that, and I just couldn't find a photograph reference for it. Then you can just find that and make it yourself. And it was very useful. What was it called? I can't remember at the moment. I'll think of it.
I think speaking of 3D images, I think we are on a time when the metaverse is a fairly common word now, and I think it's gonna get crazier, I think, in this space where 3D models and 3D printing and virtual 3D people getting their own avatars. I think a very highly evolving space right now.
Yeah, I've seen those 3D brushes where you're like in a 3D space and you're like painting.
That's yeah. I want to try that actually. It fascinates me. People doing this, wearing a virtual reality headset and drawing in the air. Actually, that sounds really cool.
That's really neat. I know like a lot of game designers. They have stuff like that and tools like that. I've always wanted to try, but yeah, it's cool. I don't know where cartooning fits into that, but Bob Mankoff, the old editor of the New Yorker, and now who runs Cartoon Stock, he's always looking at the future of cartoons and like technology and where those meet. I'm sure if there's any opportunity for that pop up, he would be the first one to pounce on it.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of tech, social media is a big part of our life right now, and it's because of social media that I stumbled upon your profile and I started following you because I loved your comics. So how do you think social media plays a role for illustrators and cartoonists in today's time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of community building, it's the most important tool that I've had. I've met so many cartoonists and sort of started a rapport with them that I never would have otherwise meet. And if you're starting a new career, I would say the most important thing is to go into the community and to become a person there and to talk to all the other people who are doing it. And social media is a great way to do that, which is not to say it doesn't come with its drawbacks. And of course, we could have a whole conversation about the bad things about social media, but I've found that Instagram has really helped me, particularly in that area. And then, of course, building an audience is, it's a wonderful tool for that. And that's very important for me. I'm freelance. I don't work for the New Yorker. I sell them cartoons. And so my career there is, it's not a stable career necessarily. It's hopefully it will continue, and I have no reason to believe it won't, but it's good to have my own safety net of my own brand, I guess. I don't know, that's not the word I love, but my own support system of fans and whatever work that I do and put out by myself.
Right. So you mentioned you're a freelancer and you have plenty of clients that you must be selling comics to. How is that like? Were you always a freelancer, or did you work as a full-time employee and then you didn't like it, or for whatever reason switched to freelancing? How has that been like?
Right out of school, I was freelance. I was fortunate enough to be able to do that, and it wasn't easy at first. It's gotten easier and easier, like a snowball effect. The more success you have, the more opportunities brings. So I'm also fortunate. My brother is a novelist, and we did a book together, and I think that was sort of the beginning of my career. And that, was big for me as an artist and as someone trying to get connected and to have an agent and things like that. So a lot of luck. And yeah, I mean, it's just been that ever since.
Awesome. So can you please share 3 tips for freelancers in general in acquiring clients, or just to go about growing as a freelancer? A few tips that you would like to share?
Sure. The thing that I look at it in terms of success is the degree in which you can say no to things. When you start out, you feel like you have to say yes to everything. And then eventually you might get to a point where you can finally say, you know what, I don't need the money for this, or I don't need to do this right now, and I don't feel guilty about it, or I don't feel. So I feel like the more that happens, the more you can feel like you can say no to things. That is an indicator right there. But not that you necessarily want to say no to things, but and then also you could sort of see it like when you're first starting out, you don't charge as much. And then as you get going, you get a little bigger, and you're like, you know what? I feel like my works, I can charge a little bit more. And I think it's totally fair. So you start to build confidence, and confidence really is important to this work. Starting out, and part of the frustration was absolutely you have no confidence, and you can get very frustrated. You can get very envious. You can get all sorts of negative emotions come in, understandably so, and it's hard to in that emotional state. It's sort of difficult to maintain professionality and not say or do anything that could potentially get you in any sort of trouble. So you have to have a degree of restraint in the beginning, for sure. I mean, you should always have a degree of restraint in every aspect of life. But yeah, that is something I remember struggling with and dealing with.
Great. So to summarize, saying no is important, and knowing your worth. I would say knowing your worth is equally important, so that you can charge accordingly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, technically, you should be able to charge more when you're first starting out. You just may not feel that way in the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a degree of confidence and yeah.
Great. Okay, so I'll throw it open to our audience. There's a question by Bharadwaj, who's a student. He says, he's asking, what kind of cartoons do you think are the best for kids and adults in development, such that it has both fun and message? He's also asking if you can give a few examples of cartoons for developing kids. And I have a question to add into it. Who do you think is the most difficult audience to write for? Like, is it kids? Is it teens? Adults?
I have to think about this. Okay, so the first question was an example student that works for both kids and adults, because it might be funny. Yeah, that is interesting, because if I showed a kid your average, if I just gave him a New Yorker and he flipped through the cartoons, there might be a lot he doesn't get, because they're really geared.
They're very witty and need to.
Yeah, and they're geared towards adult things, I don't know. So when it comes to having a message, if that's how you define an adult cartoon, I wouldn't define it that way, because that can be sort of nebulous. Messages are easy to find regardless. I've posted cartoons that have nothing to do with politics whatsoever, and people will find a political message in it.
Oh, true.
And I've done cartoons that I don't see the angle that other people are seeing. So I'm not sure message is something that I think about. Sometimes I'm very, that's very clear, and that's exactly what I'm doing. But that can be something that I wouldn't. So I would take that out of the equation, because if you're just trying to find a cartoon that can appeal to kids and then let adults have their adult interpretation on it. So thinking of examples, I don't, I'd have to look at cartoons for that to be able, I can't think of anything up at the top of my head immediately. What, and your second part of the question was?
It was, I wanted to know who is the most difficult audience to draw and write for? Like, is it younger kids? Is it kids developing into adult teens?
I don't know. I get commissions from certain particular places that want a cartoon that's about their particular type of occupation. So a cartoon, I just had like a nightclub contact me, and they want cartoons about on the theme of fear of missing out, FOMO, and then I do cartoons for a pickleball magazine. Pickleball, it's a sport. And then when I was doing cartoons for Wired, so when you give me a specific topic and I just got to come up with cartoons around that topic, I found that it's kind of easy. Not easy, that's the wrong word, but it's easier than just like swiping at anything. So if you just have a specific topic, I think that is that's not necessarily something that could be challenging. I think the challenge is completely out of ideas when that switch has been off and you've been living your life and you suddenly realize I got to submit a bunch of cartoons. I've got nothing. That's when it becomes difficult, when you're just grasping at for anything, and then you find yourself grasping at the same old stuff that's been done 100 times. And this is, I'm like going through this right now. This week, I have like nothing. I find myself doing cartoons about resetting my password or things like that. It's like that's well-worn territory, and it's been done. And so I think that's the hardest. I don't know if adult versus kids has anything to do with it, really. Although, kid cartoons, I don't know, put a cute animal in it, they'll like it. I don't know.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But and I agree. I think that's a good way to look at it, to not just think about an audience first, but find the topic first, and then you'll eventually find your way around.
Yeah,
that's a good way to look at it.
I think that's exactly it. I think audience doesn't matter as much. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one final question, Ellis. Julie here is asking, do you feel that getting a formal education in fine arts is necessary to become an artist?
No, I don't think it's necessary. I think it could help, but there are plenty of self-made artists. There are plenty of people, fellow cartoonists of mine, who got degrees in something completely different and are very successful cartoonists. It's not necessary at all. I would say what is helpful about it is that you have more time to draw, because you're sitting there drawing, and drawing is the best way to learn how to draw. So if you find the time to do that yourself anyway, if you have that interest, you'll be fine. You don't need to go to art school.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Julie. Thank you so much, Ellis, for this session and for your time. It was lovely chatting with you. I look forward to reading more of your comics. Everyone who's here, I request you to go follow Ellis on Instagram.
Thank you. Yes.
He shares some really, really, really funny comics. Okay, then, Ellis.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, cool. Bye. Thank you so much for having me. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Thank you so much for your time.